All right, let's jump straight into a role that seems straightforward but is actually incredibly intricate. The collection specialist.
Mhm.
We're talking about something that goes way beyond just chasing payments. It's this demanding mix of, well, sharp financial know-how, crucial legal understanding, and maybe surprisingly, a lot of human psychology.
Exactly. And for this deep dive, we've actually drawn from a really comprehensive guide focused on interview questions for these specialists.
Okay.
Think of it like a shortcut, a way to understand the core skills and the often very nuanced situations they face day to day.
Right.
Our aim here is really to pull out the most vital pieces,
Mm.
helping you get a real sense of what makes someone truly effective in this field.
So our mission today, unpack the essential abilities and the maybe hidden challenges of being a collection specialist. We want to go beyond just what they do
Hmm.
and really dig into how they manage these complex interactions, effectively and ethically. Let's start with the basics, the fundamental definition. At its heart, a collection specialist tracks accounts receivable, right? And ensures payments come in on time by, well, routinely contacting clients about debts. Sounds simple enough on paper.
It really does,
Yeah.
but that description barely scratches the surface of the actual job.
Right.
What's really key to understand is the immense pressure involved.
Yeah.
It's not just about spreadsheets.
Yeah.
It's a role that requires constant negotiation, often with people who are in, real financial difficulty.
Yeah, that sounds stressful.
Oh, it is. It demands this unique combination of patience, but also firmness,
Mm.
and that critical thinking to sort out often tangled credit issues. It's a high-pressure job, really. Every conversation can be a test.
And that pressure, that intensity, I think it explains why maybe a college degree isn't always the first thing employers look for.
Right?
But that relevant work experience is so highly valued. It speaks to the practical, hands-on skills you need.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if we zoom out a bit, those critical skills, they go well beyond just understanding numbers.
Hmm.
You absolutely need strong communication skills, obviously, but also a high level of emotional intelligence, and crucially, a really solid understanding of financial laws and regulations.
Such as.
Well, things like the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, the FDCPA, that's huge, it protects consumers,
Yeah.
plus just a firm grip on basic billing procedures. These aren't just nice to haves, they're foundational.
Yeah, non-negotiable. And this is where it gets really interesting, I think, because those skills aren't just theoretical.
No,
They
no.
play out in some incredibly tough, real-world situations. Like, let's take an example. Say you've got a debtor, 6 months behind on payments. You finally reach them, and they tell you about serious financial problems. Maybe they get emotional. How does a specialist handle that?
Well, the guidance really points towards a nuanced approach.
Mhm.
You lead with empathy, but you maintain professionalism.
Okay.
It's about genuinely listening, understanding their specific situation, and then working with them to figure out a payment plan that's actually reasonable, something they can stick to.
So empathy isn't weakness here.
Not at all. It's often the most strategic path, the most direct way to find a workable solution. It's kind of a surprising truth about effective collection.
That's a really important distinction. It's not about being soft, it's strategic empathy. Okay, what about the flip side? You call a client, maybe just for an update, and they get aggressive or rude. How do you manage that conflict?
Yeah, that definitely happens. The advice here is clear. Stay completely calm, stay professional, even if they're hostile.
Easier said than done, I imagine.
It takes practice,
Yeah.
but you reiterate why settling the account is important, and this is key. You immediately pivot to offering solutions. Aggression often stems from frustration, right? Or feeling backed into a corner.
Sure.
So changing that dynamic from confrontation to problem solving, that's really paramount.
And what about those, the classic excuses, oh, I forgot, or I'm just waiting for my next paycheck, I never got the bill. How does a specialist navigate those without just, well, getting stonewalled?
A skilled specialist doesn't just argue. They have tailored responses ready.
Yeah.
They acknowledge the excuse, but then they immediately pivot back to the main issue in the next steps. So I forgot, it might be something like, okay, I understand things get busy, which is why I'm calling now. Can we set up a payment or maybe a reminder to make it easier?
Ah, I see. So acknowledge and redirect.
Exactly. It's about anticipating those common lines, acknowledging them briefly, and then gently but firmly guiding the conversation back towards resolution.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the human element, the communication. What about the more operational side, the nuts and bolts?
Right. So specialists need a really good grasp of the different collection methods available.
Which are?
Well, they can range from direct contact Phone calls, letters, emails, which is often the most effective and least confrontational, depending on the company's style,
Mm-hmm.
to things like debt settlement, where you negotiate a lower payoff amount. And then sometimes legal action is necessary, but that's usually the last resort.
And keeping track of all this, organization must be absolutely critical. How do they manage the history for every single account?
Yeah, meticulous is the word. The sources we looked at emphasize specialized collection software.
Like specific programs.
Exactly. Industry standards like CollectMax, for example. They use these platforms to log absolutely everything, every call, every email, every payment promise, every actual payment, the details of any plan agreed upon.
Wow.
It's the system's memory, ensuring continuity and a full picture for every single case.
That makes total sense. You need that history. And how often are they typically following up with someone who's delinquent? What's the usual approach?
The common rhythm seems to be about every 2 weeks. But it's not just nagging. It's this kind of artful follow-up.
Artful, how so?
Well, you have to be firm, yes, remind them of their obligation. But you also need to be fair and proactively ask about any barriers they might be facing now that are preventing payment.
Ah, okay. Still trying to problem solve.
Exactly. It's that balancing act again. It's crucial for actually getting results, but also for maintaining some level of professional relationship and tracking payments. Again, it's that software combined with maybe robust spreadsheets for detailed, meticulous updates.
So it really is a data-driven, systematic process, not just making phone calls randomly.
Absolutely not.
Which brings us neatly to the technical skills needed.
Yes. Being comfortable with that specialized software like CollectMax and also being proficient in something like Microsoft Excel, these aren't just optional extras.
Essential tools.
Definitely. They dramatically boost productivity and let specialists handle sometimes hundreds or thousands of accounts efficiently. Without that tech skill, the whole operation would just bog down.
Now let's shift to something really crucial, the ethical dimension, the sharp edges. What are, say, 3 things a collection specialist absolutely must avoid saying or doing when talking to a debtor?
Oh, the guide was very explicit about this. Number
Yeah.
1, absolutely no threats of any kinds.
Yeah.
Legal action, damaging credit reports, whatever you state facts, you don't threaten.
Okay, no threats.
Number 2,
Yeah.
never, ever discuss the debt with anyone who isn't authorized. Not a spouse, not a roommate, nobody. Huge privacy violation, massive legal risks.
Right. Strict confidentiality.
And number 3, always provide correct information. Giving wrong balances, wrong payment dates, anything inaccurate that can be incredibly damaging, legally and just in terms of trust. These are bright red lines. Violating them undermines everything and can lead to serious penalties for the company.
Makes sense. And beyond just asking about skills or rules, interviews for this kind of role often try to gauge character, like
Yeah.
using those behavioral questions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They want to know how candidates have actually behaved in tough spots.
Like what kind of questions?
They might ask you to describe a time you dealt with a particularly difficult or angry client, or how you persuaded someone to pay a large overdue debt.
Real life examples.
Precisely.
Right.
Or maybe how you handled an ethical dilemma at work, even a small one.
Yeah.
What did you learn from a negotiation that failed? It's all about getting insight into their judgment, their resilience, and again, how much they understand the role of empathy in building trust, even in this kind of challenging field.
So flipping that around, if you're evaluating someone for this role, what are the major red flags you'd watch out for?
Well, a big one would be any sign of a lack of empathy. If they just don't seem to get the human side of it, they'll likely struggle and maybe cross lines.
Okay.
Poor communication skills obviously are a deal breaker.
Oh.
And related to what we just discussed, an insufficient grasp of the relevant laws and regulations, like the FDCPA. This job really needs a specific, well-rounded person who can balance that firmness with real finesse.
A tricky balance.
It really is. So to kind of wrap it all up, a successful collection specialist is this unique, quite powerful blend. They're part financial manager, part legal guide,
Right.
and part empathetic, but also persuasive communicator. It's a role where precision, like in data and process, truly meets the art of persuasion.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, so given that complex interplay negotiation, empathy, financial savvy, legal awareness, here's something to think about for you, the listener. What other fields, maybe seemingly unrelated professions, or even just situations in your own life, could really benefit from adopting that collection specialist mindset and skill set? Think about how these insights might apply far beyond just collecting debts. Where else is that blend of firmness, empathy, and strategy truly valuable?